Hey kids, today we're going to talk about how you, me, and everyone you know are absolute pathetic biological failures. Modern science likes to reassure us that thanks to sports science, protein powder, fitness influencers, and gym memberships, today's humans represent the peak of athletic evolution. Unfortunately, recent research suggests a much more humiliating reality. Compared to many of our ancestors, modern humans, even elite athletes, look less like the pinnacle of evolution and more like the budget version. Let's begin with your slowly dissolving skeleton. For roughly 7 million years, human evolution had one rule: move or die. If you spent your day sitting around, something with larger teeth than you would solve that problem. Then we invented office chairs, streaming services, and food delivery apps, and our skeletons immediately started quiet quitting. In 2014, anthropologists Timothy Ryan and Colin Shaw compared the hip bones of ancient hunter-gatherers and later farming populations from Illinois. Same region, similar genetics, completely different lifestyles. The result: the hunter-gatherers had about 20% more bone mass than the farmers. To put that into perspective, losing 20% of your bone density is roughly comparable to the bone loss an astronaut experiences after spending 3 months floating in space. You don't even need a rocket to achieve spaceflight-level skeletal deterioration anymore. You just need a couch and a streaming subscription. Under a microscope, the difference was obvious. The hunter-gatherers had thick, plate-like bone structures built to absorb constant physical punishment. The farmers had thinner, rod-like structures that looked considerably less enthusiastic about supporting a human body. One skeleton looked prepared for survival, the other looked prepared for paperwork. Even stranger, the ancient foragers had bone densities overlapping with wild primates like chimpanzees and baboons. This means your genetics aren't the problem. Your body is perfectly capable of building a skeleton like a wild animal. It just looked at your lifestyle and decided strong bones weren't worth the investment. And before the gym bros start celebrating, even these hunter-gatherers couldn't compete with earlier hominins like Neanderthals. Those things were less human and more angry granite statue. Now let's move on to the moment that should make every Olympic sprinter slightly uncomfortable. In 2003, researchers studying ancient footprints at Australia's Willandra Lakes discovered a trackway left behind roughly 20,000 years ago. One set belonged to a young hunter known as T8. By analyzing the stride length preserved in the fossilized mud, researchers estimated that T8 was sprinting at around 37 kilometers per hour. That's Olympic territory. The difference is that Olympic sprinters run on perfectly engineered tracks with custom footwear, professional coaching, sports medicine teams, and occasionally enough sponsorship money to purchase a small island. T8 was barefoot in mud, chasing lunch. To hit that speed in slippery clay, researchers estimated he would have needed a cadence of roughly 333 steps per minute. That's so ridiculous that most modern track coaches would assume their stopwatch was broken. And remember, this wasn't a race. Nobody was timing him. There was no gold medal waiting at the finish line. He was just trying to catch dinner. Anthropologist Peter McAllister later suggested that under modern conditions, this Ice Age teenager could potentially have reached speeds comparable to the fastest sprinters ever recorded. Imagine dedicating your entire life to becoming the fastest human on Earth, only to get cooked by a barefoot teenager from 20,000 years ago who hasn't even discovered agriculture yet. Even crazier, nearby tracks appear to show a one-legged hunter hopping through the mud at remarkable speed to keep up with the group. Modern motivational speakers could retire immediately. Speaking of embarrassing comparisons, let's talk about throwing. Chimpanzees are terrifying. Pound for pound, they're much stronger than humans. A chimp could probably remove your car door using techniques not approved by the manufacturer. But there's one thing they're surprisingly bad at. Throwing a chimp can launch an object at roughly 32 kilometers per hour. A human can throw much faster despite being weaker overall. According to a 2013 study published in Nature, this is because humans don't throw using muscle alone. Your shoulder functions like a biological slingshot. As you wind your arm back, tendons and connective tissues store elastic energy. When the arm snaps forward, that energy gets released all at once. The result is shoulder rotation speeds reaching nearly 9,000 degrees per second, the fastest joint movement anywhere in the human body. That's roughly 25 complete rotations every second. Researchers even tested this by restricting shoulder movement with braces. Throwing speed immediately dropped by around 8%. 2 million years ago, Homo erectus evolved the body structure needed to make this possible. A flexible torso, outward-facing shoulders, and arm anatomy optimized for storing elastic energy. We evolved into living spear launchers so we could kill dangerous animals from a safe distance. And today we mostly use this evolutionary masterpiece to throw crumpled paper into trash cans and rage-quit controllers across living rooms. Human progress is beautiful. Now let's discuss Neanderthals, otherwise known as nature's answer to the question. What if a forklift evolved, while Homo sapiens specialized in endurance and throwing? Neanderthals specialized in raw power. Their muscle attachment points sat farther from the joints than ours, giving them greater leverage and dramatically increasing torque production. In his book Manthropology, Peter McAllister analyzed a Neanderthal woman known as Laferasi II and argued that her skeletal leverage would have made her frighteningly strong by modern standards. The average fitness influencer would last about 3 seconds before being folded into a decorative lawn chair, and Neanderthals weren't just muscular, their bones were absurdly robust. Many skeletons show levels of mechanical stress that would make an orthopedic surgeon start asking uncomfortable questions. If modern humans are sports cars, Neanderthals were armored bulldozers. They also developed enormous asymmetry between their arms. Some individuals showed over 50% greater development on their dominant side. For years, researchers assumed this came from hunting mammoths. Turns out it was probably hide scraping. Thousands upon thousands of hours scraping frozen animal skins built arms that looked like they'd been designed by a comic book artist. Imagine developing superhero-level musculature because winter exists. Now let's talk endurance. Modern athletes love to think they're special. Ancient history disagrees. In 2007, exercise physiologist Harry Rossiter studied the energy requirements of an ancient Greek trireme, a warship powered by 170 rowers. Historical accounts describe these ships traveling extraordinary distances while rowing for nearly an entire day. To maintain those speeds, rowers had to sustain astonishing power output while surviving on simple foods like barley paste mixed with wine and oil. No electrolyte powders, no sports gels, no recovery drinks costing more than a restaurant meal. Rossiter concluded that maintaining those speeds would require an incredible level of fitness, yet ancient Athens operated hundreds of these ships. That's roughly 34,000 rowers maintaining endurance levels that would still be impressive today. The Romans were equally ridiculous. Roman recruits regularly marched 18 miles in 5 hours carrying heavy equipment. Fast marches covered over 21 miles in the same time, while loaded down with gear and armor. For comparison, many modern people consider parking at the far end of a shopping center an extreme endurance event. Roman soldiers routinely carried loads that would make modern hikers reconsider their life choices before breakfast. Finally, let's talk about footwear. Harvard researcher Daniel Lieberman studied the Tarahumara people of Mexico, famous for running ultramarathon distances, wearing simple sandals made from tire tread. His research found that traditional runners naturally adopted movement patterns that reduced impact forces, while modern cushioned shoes often encouraged heavier landings. Apparently, millions of years of evolutionary fine-tuning can be overridden by a marketing department and 2 inches of foam. Lieberman also discovered something surprising about barefoot populations. Even extremely thick foot calluses don't significantly reduce sensitivity. In other words, your feet can develop natural armor without losing their built-in sensors. Meanwhile, modern humans spend hundreds of dollars on shoes designed to solve problems our own feet were already handling. So what happened to us? Did humanity suddenly evolve into a weaker species? Not really. The uncomfortable truth is that most of these differences aren't genetic. They're developmental. Our ancestors weren't born with magical superathlete DNA. Their environment forced their bodies to adapt from childhood. Every day demanded strength, endurance, balance, coordination, and resilience. We inherited the same hardware. We just use it to carry groceries from the car and then complain about the walk. The scary part isn't that ancient humans were built differently. The scary part is that they probably weren't anyway. Go touch some grass, lift something heavier than your phone, and try not to let your skeleton slowly transition into astronaut mode. See ya later, kids!